A car crash is a loud event. It draws attention. It breaks the silence of the night. Usually a crash is the end of the story. The driver is injured, or they are shaken, or they are waiting by the bumper for a tow truck. But sometimes, the crash is just the beginning. Sometimes first responders arrive at the scene of a wreck to find the doors locked. They find the airbags deployed. They find the wallet on the seat, the keys in the ignition, and the engine still ticking from the heat. But the driver has simply ceased to exist. We call them the Crash-Vanish cases. They are the most frustrating, haunting mysteries in police files because they defy the basic laws of physics. If you crash your car, you are vulnerable. You are likely injured. You are disoriented. You cannot run fast. You cannot fight back. And yet, in case after case, these drivers manage to slip away in the blink of an eye. You know the name Maura Murray. She is the patient zero of the internet sleuthing age. But Maura was not an anomaly. She was part of a pattern. Tonight, we are traveling to the frozen roads of New Hampshire, the abandoned farmhouses of Vermont, and the cornfields of Minnesota. We are going to reconstruct the final minutes of 6 drivers who crashed their cars and walked into oblivion. We will analyze the 7-minute window, that impossible gap of time between the 911 call and the arrival of police. And we have to answer the question, is there something predatory patrolling our highways? Or is the human brain simply wired to self-destruct when the metal hits the guardrail? Chapter 1. The Anchor. To understand the pattern, we have to start with the archetype. The case that taught us that a person can vanish in a timeline so tight, it seems technically impossible. February 9, 2004, Route 112, New Hampshire. 21-year-old nursing student Maura Murray loses control of her black Saturn sedan. She spins out on a sharp, dark curve and slams into a snowbank. It is 7:27 p.m. A bus driver named Butch Atwood stops. He sees Maura. She is alive. She is standing by the car. He asks if she needs help. She says no. She pleads with him not to call the police. Butch leaves to call 911 from his home, 100 yards away. At 7:35 p.m., just 7 minutes later, Sergeant Cecil Smith arrives. The car is locked. The box of wine is on the seat. But Maura is gone. This is the 0 hour. The snow is fresh. There were no footprints leaving the scene. The police searched the woods for miles. They used thermal imaging. They used helicopters. Maura Murray didn't run. She evaporated. And while the world obsessed over her, the clock was already ticking for the next driver. Chapter 2. The Echoes. If Maura was an isolated incident, we could call it a tragedy. But exactly 1 month later, and just 90 miles away, the pattern repeated. Case file, Brianna Maitland. March 19, 2004. Montgomery, Vermont. 17-year-old Brianna leaves her shift at the Black Lantern Inn. She drives into the night. The next morning, her pale green Oldsmobile is found. It isn't just crashed, it is backed into the side of an abandoned farmhouse, so violently that the rear bumper is embedded in the wall. Inside? Her uncashed paycheck, her contact lenses, her migraine medicine. Outside, silence. No footprints. No signs of a struggle. Just a car staged like a tombstone in the snow. Case file, Brandon Swanson. 4 years later. May 14, 2008. Minnesota. 19-year-old Brandon Swanson drives his Chevy into a ditch on a gravel road. He calls his parents. He is lucid. He tells them he is unhurt. He says he is walking toward the lights of a nearby town. He stays on the phone with his father for 47 minutes. But the pattern didn't stop in 2008. As technology advanced, as we got GPS, smartphones, and tracking apps, you would think these disappearances would become impossible. You would be wrong. Case file, Bryce Laspisa. August 30th, 2013. Castaic Lake, California. 19-year-old Bryce Laspisa is driving home to his parents. But for 20 hours he sits in his Toyota Highlander in a parking spot doing nothing. When he finally moves, he drives straight toward a cliff. Witnesses see him accelerate. The car tumbles 100 feet down into a ravine. First responders rush down. They find the vehicle on its side. The back window is shattered, punched out from the inside. There is blood on the seats. His wallet, laptop, and phone are all there. But Bryce is gone. Divers search the lake. Helicopters scour the canyon. He survived a 100-foot drop, climbed out of the wreck, and vanished into the desert scrub. Case file, Daniel Robinson. June 23, 2021. Buckeye, Arizona. 24-year-old geologist Daniel Robinson leaves his job site in the middle of the day. He drives his Jeep Renegade into the empty desert. Weeks later, a rancher finds the Jeep. It is battered, lying on its side in a ravine. The airbags are deployed. But then, the discovery gets stranger. Miles away from the crash, searchers find his clothes, his boots, his jeans, his vest. They are not torn. They are simply removed. Daniel Robinson didn't just walk away from his car. He walked away from everything. Case file, Patricia Meehan. And finally, the case that proves this phenomenon has no expiration date. April 20th, 1989. Circle, Montana. 37-year-old Patricia Meehan is driving her Mustang on Highway 200. Suddenly, she drifts into the wrong lane. She crashes head-on into another vehicle. The other driver survives. She watches as Patricia climbs out of the wrecked Mustang. Patricia is bleeding. She looks at the witness. She doesn't speak. She just stares. A hollow, empty stare. Then, she climbs over a fence and walks into the darkness of the Montana fields. She is never seen again. 6 cars, 6 wrecks, 6 families waiting for a phone that never rings. Whether it was 1989 or 2021, the outcome is the same. The car remains. The driver evaporates. Now we must ask why. Chapter 3. Investigation. The items left behind. When we analyze these cases, we find our first major anomaly, the possessions. In a normal evacuation, say, fleeing a fire or a flood, people grab the essentials: wallet, phone, keys, medication. But in the crash-vanish cases, the drivers leave behind the very things that prove they exist. Maura Murray locked her car, but left her alcohol and the directions to her destination. Brianna Maitland left her paycheck. Bryce Laspisa left his ID. Daniel Robinson, a geologist who vanished in Arizona in 2021, left his clothes. There are 2 theories here. Theory 1, the staged scene. In the case of Brianna Maitland, the car backed into the farmhouse suggests a struggle, or perhaps someone else was driving. If a perpetrator has control of the vehicle, they don't care about the paycheck on the seat. They only care about the victim. The items are left behind because the driver was interrupted. But theory 2 is darker. It's called the shedding. Psychologists suggest that when the human brain enters a state of manic flight or extreme trauma, identity becomes a burden. The driver isn't running toward safety. They are running away from themselves. The wallet, the phone, the car. These are symbols of the life they are trying to escape. Did Maura Murray leave her belongings because she was taken? Or did she leave them because she no longer wanted to be Maura Murray? Investigation. The scent of nothing. The most damning piece of evidence in these cases isn't what was found. It's what wasn't found. A track. In Maura Murray's case, police brought in a bloodhound. They gave the dog a scent article, a pair of leather gloves found in the car. The dog picked up the scent. It tracked Maura from the driver's side door, around the vehicle, and down the road about 100 yards. And then, the dog stopped, right in the middle of the paved road. This is a forensic impossibility for a walker. If Maura had continued walking, the scent would continue. If she had walked into the woods, the scent would drift. For a scent to end abruptly on a highway, physics dictates only one solution: the subject left the ground. This happens in Brandon Swanson's case as well. Search dogs tracked him from his car down a gravel road to a specific point near a river, and then lost it. This evidence points us away from the lost in the woods theory and directly toward the vehicle theory. The tandem driver. Did Maura Murray coordinate a pickup? Was a friend driving ahead of her? If so, why hasn't that friend come forward in 20 years? Or, was it the opportunistic predator? Imagine the scene. You are Maura. You are Brandon. You are dazed. You are cold. A car pulls up. The window rolls down. A friendly face asks if you need a ride to the station. You get in. And in that instant, you vanish from the surface of the earth. The scent trail ends because the car drove away. When we look at these 6 cases all together, a chilling geometric pattern emerges. These aren't just random accidents. They represent a specific, terrifying liminal space. Think about it. In every case, the car, the very thing meant to keep the driver safe and moving, becomes a tombstone, the 7-minute window. In Maura Murray's case, it was 7 minutes. For Brandon Swanson, it was the duration of a phone call. For Bryce Laspisa, it was the time between a crash and a witness arriving. This tells us that vanishing doesn't take a lifetime. It takes a heartbeat. It suggests that when we are at our most vulnerable, dazed, injured, and alone on a dark road, the margin for error is non-existent, the choice to walk. But there is a deeper question. Why walk away from the road? Search and rescue experts often speak of the woods of the mind. When a driver is under extreme psychological stress, like Maura or Bryce, the crash acts as a breaking point. They aren't running toward a destination. They are running away from a reality they can no longer handle. In that state, the dark woods or the empty desert doesn't look like a threat. It looks like an exit. The predator in the dark. However, we cannot ignore the scent trail. When a dog loses a scent in the middle of a paved road, it's a forensic scream. It tells us the driver left the ground. Whether they got into a car with a friend or a monster, the result is the same. They transitioned from a missing person to a ghost, the legacy of the empty seat. Perhaps the reason we are so obsessed with Maura Murray in these sister cases isn't just because we want to solve them. It's because they mirror our own deepest fear that one day we could make a wrong turn, hit a patch of ice, and simply cease to exist. The cars were recovered, the roads were reopened, but for 6 families, time stopped at the moment of impact. They don't just want theories, they want a destination. Where did they go? Maybe the answer isn't in the woods. Maybe it's in the silence they left behind. We began this journey at a snowy curve on Route 112, looking for a woman who vanished in less than 7 minutes. But as we've seen, Maura Murray is not alone. From the abandoned farmhouses of Vermont to the vast Arizona desert, a haunting pattern remains unbroken. A sudden crash, a brief silence, and a driver who simply evaporates. These are not just internet mysteries or unsolved puzzles for us to debate. They are sons, daughters, and sisters. For families like the Murrays, the clock didn't just stop in 2004. It has been ticking painfully ever since, through every lead that went nowhere, and every search that turned up empty. Why do these roadside vanishings haunt us so deeply? Perhaps because they happen in the most mundane of places. We all drive these roads. We all know the feeling of a dark highway and the sudden vulnerability of a dead engine, whether it was a moment of panic, a tragic choice, or the intervention of someone in the dark. The seat remains empty. But the search doesn't have to be. Information is the only thing that can bridge the gap between a mystery and a homecoming. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Maura Murray, Brianna Maitland, Brandon Swanson, Bryce Laspisa, Daniel Robinson, or Patricia Meehan, please do not stay silent. You can reach out to the local police or contact the FBI tip line, because someone, somewhere, knows where the road ended, and it's time to bring them home.